Welcome back to Will It Work? I'm Kevin, and today we're looking at the Atari 7800 video game system. Got quite a bit on this one, not as much as I have had on other longer ones, but this one won't be a 5-minute thing. We will be testing it out. 7800 is kind of a weird system. It came out too late, basically. It came out at a time when I think basically, it was going to compete with the NES, but it was really meant to come out around the same time as the NES, and it, if I recall, it came out too late, and people didn't really want to play it. It was supposed to be kind of like, a next gen type of thing, but it wasn't quite there. It's the same thing that happened to Sega, right? With their Master System. It's the it was more powerful than the NES, but it wasn't 16-bit. It wasn't quite there. The 7800 was more powerful than probably the NES, but maybe, but it wasn't quite there. And it was also like at a time when Atari's reputation was sort of tarnished in the sense of they no longer felt new. They didn't have a lot of chatter. The games that they were trying to sell were just older games that everybody had already played on the 2600. And even though they had better graphics, they were the same old games. Nintendo was releasing new stuff found in the arcade. And Atari just, they never seemed to really grasp that that's what people wanted to do, is play those arcade games. And they, basically shot themselves in the foot. And so this machine was not a success. I don't know how well it did in Europe, but I do have two different Atari 7800s. This is the American version because it has these controllers. And they're not well-loved controllers, but they're not horrible. They had this kind of paddle control here, and then this regular digital movement with these two side buttons. It was supposed to give you a little bit of both. It wasn't bad. I think maybe the Coleco Genesis or Gemini did a better job of this, but it's okay, right? These buttons, though, which one's A, which one's B? It's like left button, right button. There's this big Atari logo here. It just wasn't well designed at the end of the day. And I think they knew. They kind of knew it wasn't well designed when, the NES had been out for a while. So when they released the European version, they had switched to these Gamepad Controls, which most Americans hadn't seen, but were the way the 7800 was actually released in Europe was with this control. You can actually unscrew this and use it as a D-pad, and you had these two buttons. These were also notorious for breaking, and there's some company out there, I think, that will fix these and refurb them and make them better. They were kind of a cheap controller. Of course, Atari was probably doing it to save money more than anything at that point. But yeah, so I had a buddy. His mom or his dad bought him a 7800, and he had some games for it. And I think he ended up giving it to me, but that's not one of these units that I have now. I'm sure I gave it away or something at some point, or maybe I gave it back to him. I don't really remember. So let's look at a few things that I do have, because I have a bunch of different games. Let's move the box out of the way. Look at the unit. I have two different units. They're both identical, but we will look at both to make sure they work. It has an unusual power pin. It's sort of a two-prong mini thing rather than a round barrel connector. I do have an adapter for it. We'll see if it works. Otherwise, I'll have to find... I'm sure I have the original 7800 power adapter somewhere, but I'll have to dig it up. So we'll look at that. Now, the 7800 could play 2600 games and 7800 games. So that was kind of helpful if you already had a 2600 game library. You could continue to use it with the 7800 in most cases. But it did not support the 5200. And, you know, in some ways, I don't know. I think maybe that 5200 lack of support was a bit of a mistake. But yeah, that's a story for another day. At that point, the 5200 was dead and buried, so I guess it doesn't really matter. So loose carts, we've got some 2600 Joust, and I have other 2600 games. We haven't actually looked at the 2600 in this series. I obviously have a 2600. I have more than one. But we'll take a look at a couple of 2600 games so we can get some comparisons here. But when we get to the actual 2600, when I look at that one, we'll look at some of the games more in depth. We have Stampede for the 2600, and we have Volleyball for the 2600. I remember, like, there used to be commercials all the time when I was a kid for these different games, like Stampede and such, and a little less so with the Atari games themselves that were sort of generic, like this Real Sports Volleyball. But a lot of the other games just had full commercials, you know, and everything that we're supporting. So it was sort of an interesting thing, you know, with the 2600, because if you're young, you've probably grown up and just found, like, emulators full of Atari 2600 games, or these flashback systems full of different games that you just pick one and play. But each one of those games actually had, like, you know, the same sort of large-scale advertising campaign and support and things, and there were comic books and contests and advertisements on cereal boxes and all sorts of stuff just for each one of these things. And, you know, they all came out at different times, and there was competition to, you know, be the game that the kids wanted to buy for Christmas and all that sort of stuff with all these things, you know, and they were, you know, relatively expensive for the time. You know, it'd probably be about $50 today for one of these things, etc. Now, in terms of 7800 cartridges, we've got the one-on-one basketball. I don't know why it's torn right there, but that's how it came. We have the Pole Position 2. This came with the system, I believe. They call it the Atari 7800 Pro system. We have Galaga. Why is it black and white? Probably cost savings. That's all I can think. And we have baseball. Now, that's not actually all my 7800 cartridges, but that's all the ones that are loose. And probably all the ones that we're actually going to play. But I will show you the ones that I still have that are boxed and sealed. And I'll tell you a little story about that. There was a company, when Atari had gone out of business, that found or purchased basically an old warehouse full of Atari games that were just filled top to bottom. And they sold the games for cheap. I think the games were about $1 each at one point. And I bought a whole bunch of them. I bought 2 cases, I think, and I gave one case, or I sold one case or something, you know, but I kept the other ones. And that's what these are. Unfortunately, while they're still sealed, the plastic, you know, it tends to shrink over time, and it tends to kind of crush the box a little bit. But what are you going to do? If you remove the plastic, then you end up opening it, basically, you know. And so I didn't want to do that. So we have 7800 Hat Trick, never opened. Ninja Golf, never opened. We have the Donkey Kong, and again, I always found that weird. Donkey Kong by Nintendo, you know, competitor, right? This is going up against the NES. Nintendo's like, yeah, you want Donkey Kong? You pay us. We'll give you Donkey Kong. Or they just had some really old agreement that they were still able to use it after all this time. Touchdown football. Win prizes. See inside for details. Can't do that anymore. Centipede. That company that bought all those games long ago, since sold them all away. Asteroids. I bet there's lots of collectors out there with similar copies of these games unopened, just like I have. Donkey Kong Jr. Although I think some titles were probably more, they had more of them due to their popularity than others, like Joust. Yes. But they probably didn't have a whole lot of Scrapyard Dog. But hey, I have Scrapyard Dogs. What are you going to do about that? Winter Games. That's a Super Game cartridge. Probably because it uses more memory or something. Dig Dug. And One-on-One. So, those are all sealed. We won't be looking at those, but I just wanted to show those to you. So what we're going to do, though, is I'm going to wire up the 7800 here, connect it to the VCR, and get it going into the conversion box, and we will test out the controllers and the loose cart games that we have, and we'll start off with some 2600 games so we can see how they compare to the 7800 games in terms of graphics, etc., and kind of go from there. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're looking at the Atari 7800. Between the time when I was showing you the video to now, I actually realized I had a third 7800, which was good, because what I didn't have was a power adapter, except on my third one. The 7800s have a very unusual power adapter that, for whatever reason, Atari made it difficult. Maybe they wanted to sell them, that were their own style. That's not unusual with, consumer electronics. But there's not really a good aftermarket for them. No one sells them. And so if you want to buy a used one, they run about $50 on eBay. So kind of expensive for an adapter, especially with so many being made in China nowadays. But there was a place called Atari Age that made a whole bunch of them and sold them. But they I don't know what happened to that website. It just kind of went away. And then the guy that was selling those, he had them on Amazon for a while, and then he kind of stopped. So we're looking at Pole Position 2 here. This is a 7800 game. And give it a little try here. Now we are looking at the staticky feed. We're going to try all three of my 7800s. So that's low, and then I can shift it into high. And I'm using one of the larger joysticks rather than the gamepad. It looks pretty good. It looks better than the original Pole Position. It is called Pole Position 2, of course. I never really cared for Pole Position because whenever I play racing games, I'm never one to use the brake or slow down. I just kind of want to go as fast as I can around turns and just try to hang on to it, So I've never really been great at these racing games in general. I mean, I of course, have played, your Burnouts and your Gran Turismos and various other things, and I've learned to adapt my play style. But yeah, in general though, when it's just like a pick up and play kind of thing, I'd rather just kind of blow through it. All right, so that's Pole Position 2. We'll try one more on this unit. Let's try One-on-One with Larry Bird and Dr. J. Interestingly enough, if you put an Atari 2600 cartridge into this unit, the sticker faces you. And if you put in a 7800 cartridge, the sticker faces away. Oh, look at that. Now, I remember this game on the Commodore 64. It was okay. It's obviously in 2-player mode right now, so I can just shoot on my own. But I didn't really understand the rules of basketball when this was out. Like, I wasn't like a sports guy or anything. And so I often got, you know, what do they call it? Goaltending or something? Just broke the backboard. Oh, well. But, you know, today this is like super dated. Damn it, gonna steal that ball from you. F you, Larry Bird. Dr. J all the way. And I knew kind of who these guys were because my dad would watch basketball sometimes, which was always kind of weird too. I didn't think my dad was like a basketball fan, but I think he was maybe doing it so he would have something to talk about at the office. Whatever. All right, so that's one-on-one. There's nothing to write home about with this. I mean, it looks better than the 2600 game, but not great. All right, so this 7800 system seems to work okay. Let's take out the power. The joystick. We will switch it up now. We'll try unit number 2. Let's see if we got serial number differences on here. So the first one was a serial number 21725. Looks like the last 5 numbers of what we really care about here. It was 65443. And this one is 6939. This one might be earlier or older, maybe. You never know with serial numbers. Power plug. And what we'll do is we will plug in, instead of this joystick, we will plug in the Gamepad that I have here, the European Gamepad. Let's see if that works for us. And we will put in Galaga. See how close to the arcade this Galaga is. Galaga. I mean, it certainly looks better than what you would see on a 2600. Now, the question that you have to ask yourself is, and it's hard to know with games like this, but Nintendo Entertainment System, not Super Nintendo, but Nintendo Entertainment System. Is this a better hardware-wise system? Are the graphics more than what you would have gotten on the... It's hard to say, man, because Nintendo, they do so much, like with Super Mario and such, that it's hard to even see the limitations in that system when they make it work so well. When here we're just playing like an arcade game. Now, it's a good port, but you can't compare this to, like, Mario. Oh my god, I'm the worst. Alright, so the gamepad, my gamepad anyway, I was never very rough on this when I ever did plug this thing in, so it works fine. Let's get picked up once. Ooh. Sorry. I always thought like they should keep it going. Like if you could manage to like get to do this again, you'd have like 3 guys, you know, lined up, or for as many guys as you have. But no, they only do the double pair once. All right, so that's Galaga. And this Atari 7800 seems to be working fine. It's even got a sticker on it. Nice clean silver. You can't see it, but I'll take my word on it. I just peeled it off. What else we got? Real Sports Baseball. I think that's the last one we've got. 3. Other than some Atari 2600 carts. So let's move that, and let's use the last one. Let's see if the last minute works. Check that. Old one. We'll try another big controller. Baseball. And the serial number on this one is 5272895. And you know what? This one might be... Well, the printing is a little bit different on the sticker on the back. And not just the numbers being different, of course, but the way it's been printed. But otherwise, there's nothing on here that's screaming that it's a European version or anything. You do get power, but I'm not getting a display, even a sign of a display. Switch this back here. I wonder if that switch, the switch is weird. It has like a circle and a square, and I don't have a manual for it, but I wonder if it would be like, rather than channel 3, channel 4, it's doing something like it's composite or it's television signal. Wouldn't that be cool? Maybe it's doing that. All right, well, that doesn't give me the game, though. It almost wants to give me the game. And then the question is it the game or is it the unit, you know? There we go. Real Sports Baseball. I mean, I can't help to think, like, you know, the NES... This should have come out 2 years earlier than the NES. It didn't. And you know, we all know the history. But I do have to wonder, like... Man, I cannot swing. I don't know what's going on with this. I do have to wonder what it would have been like for... Well, I swing so late. I don't understand it. Am I pushing the wrong button here? It's terrible. Trying to see if I can bunt or something. What the hell? Finally hits the ball and he gets it out. Can't even see anything with all this static on the screen. I gotta wonder, like, if that is if they did something weird way, like you could switch between TV and I doubt it. Be cool though if they did. All right, so this unit works as well, so all 3 units work. Now I'm going to leave this game running, but I'm going to switch this one controller out. That seems to work okay, I guess. And I want to try. I do have have some stuff for the 2600 as well, but we'll might try one 2600 game here just to make sure our 2600 compatibility works. Let's try this. This is another large joystick I have. Oh, well, that was just me trying to walk. Yeah, I know, but how do I throw the damn ball? I can't even see the ball, it's so staticky. Is that right there? Alright. So that one works too. I think we're good here. I think so. There's one more paddle controller, but I don't know where the heck I just put it. Otherwise, we're fine. Let's look at a 2600 game just to see the 2600 compatibility. Never mind, the switcher actually does go away. I was wrong about that. I think it just depends on the game. Some games have stickers that go all the way around. So this should be... This one's really picky about putting parts in. It's going to get sprayed with some deoxidizer here in a minute. Come on. Almost had it. Remember these days? You used to have to like blow on your Nintendo cartridges. And there we go. Now this last this last gamepad controller, I just found it. Plug that in. I'll give that a whirl. Yeah, I mean, overall, this gamepad controller feels pretty cheap, but it does work okay. It's really what you want. I mean, I had so many joysticks and controllers and gamepads and things for like the original PlayStation and the Dreamcast, as well as like PlayStation 2 and probably Sega Saturn. I can't remember though on that one. They were just cheap. They just didn't work. Xbox, original Xbox, terrible third-party control. Just didn't work well. And all right, so this is Atari 2600 Just. Let's do a thing. I'm going to open one of my sealed, unopened games for science. All right, this is 2600 Joust. Why don't we, as a group, look at 7800 Joust? I know I'm crazy opening up an unopened Joust from like 1980 freaking 3, but I really don't think this is going to be in super high demand. I mean, yeah, I could maybe sell it online for $100 one day. But I've got plenty of other ones. I don't think Joust is going to... I think Ninja Golf, maybe. or Scrapyard Dog. I think those are going to be a little bit more rare than 7800 Joust. Maybe. But it's too late now. I've already opened it. Let's. And if you stick around for the 2600, when I get to that, and I'm looking at 2600 games, we will look at different games, but also I do have at least one of the adult games. Well, I own more than one of the adult games by Swedish Erotica, but we'll definitely try one. So this is 7800 Joust. Let's compare with the staticky screen. Sorry, but that's just life with the old system that we have. So that looks better. We've got 3 guys on screen. I just want to see if that lava opens up and we get that demon hand. I bet we will. Yeah, there's the fire taking it away. Just like in the arcade. You didn't get that on 2600. You would think that there was only one Flying Ostrich type game like this, but there was this game on the Commodore 64 called Revelation. It's a weird game. You were you looked like a guy, you looked like you were playing Joust, and you had a oh, there's that dragon too, but they put everything in. It's a pain in my ass. You can joust that dragon. It's hard. Alright, well anyway. That's much better. It's so hard to see with the static though. And as you can see, all 3 units had the same amount of static. So it's probably just the way they've all been tuned to that particular channel. But overall, successful run with all 3 systems here. Yeah, Revelation, you flew in a just like that, like you looked like you were jousting, but you weren't jousting, and there were other guys flying around in ones too, and I can't remember if they could shoot, but you could shoot straight ahead. And what you were doing was you were flying around this sort of like sky castle almost, and there were these towers everywhere, and you would go to each one of the towers and you would fire at the base of the tower, and this would cause the tower to eventually collapse, and a pentagram would appear on a stand where the tower was. And I think like if you died or something, it said something along the lines of the beast is smiling. And I don't know, I think maybe if you did it, without that, it said something along the lines of, the beast has been slain or something. And that was all it wrote. But it played this like eerie music and stuff. It was like it was like, well, this is really weird that somebody made like a demonic version of Joust on the Commodore 64. Like, what the hell is that all about? What was going on in that place? So the Atari 7800. Now we're going to look at the 5200, and I used to have. This is one of the mysteries of my game collection. I used to have a box of loose 5200 cards. And I do not anymore. And I don't know what happened to them. Because that is a weird thing to lose. Because I don't know anyone that had a 5200. It's not to be like, hey, I got a box of 5200 cartridges. Would you like to have it? Because that might be something I would do, but I didn't know anybody that had 5200 cartridges or had a 5200, right? And I didn't sell them because at the time that I had them, they were, they weren't rare ones or anything, so they weren't exactly worth like a small fortune or anything. So, it was like one of those things where, I was scratching my head going like, what the heck happened to my 7800 cartridges? And I'll tell you, while I've been going through this process of looking through all of my old consoles, I have rounded them all up. I know where they all are at this point. I've gone through each box and divvied up what's going to be talked about when and all this, and we've gone through at least the majority of them so far. We still have many to go through, but we've gone through the majority. And at no point have I run across anything like that. But I have noticed that I'm missing like an Atari Lynx. I'm missing like a bunch of loose Atari Lynx games. I'm missing some Microvision cartridges. And a couple other small things. Nothing particularly rare or valuable. But those are things that must have just got lost through time, I guess, somehow. Moving and a box went missing or something along those lines. But my 5200 cartridges are mostly gone. I have two, and I don't have any sealed in the box. So we will look at them, the two that I have. I don't know if one of them is Joust. I don't think so, but maybe we'll get lucky and it is. If we could do a comparison with the 5200 versus the 7800 graphically. I'm pretty sure the 7800 is better because it came later. But you never know. I mean, sometimes things are weird. The 5200 was a weird system, and we'll talk about it when we get to it. But anyway, that's it for the 7800. Sorry for the end screen static. But thanks for watching, and let's see what we got for tomorrow.